avoid legal snags by telling people they're being recorded. Thanks, Skype. Hello and welcome to PonderVision. It's our YouTube show where we talk about the show WandaVision. I'm your host, Charlie Ashby, and joining me is...
Ash Jefferson.
Perfect. Now, we started this show because on Twitter we just keep sort of just messaging each other like, we need to talk about WandaVision, but we might as well make something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're both podcasters, so this is the natural conclusion, I think.
Yeah. It's just crazy that it's got to this point. I mean, so the first 2 episodes came out the same day, and a lot of people like stuck reactions. I was like, oh god, I can't do reactions now because that's what you've gone past. I was like, we could do like a review series. I was like, okay, I'll give it a few more weeks. Went up to episode 4. We're about to do our first episode, and then we was like, look, why don't we just wait till episode 5? And what a great place to start.
Yeah, what an... There's so many thoughts on this TV show. I don't even know where to start with it, really. If I'm being totally honest.
Okay, let's go back to a few years ago when we heard about this for the first time at, I think it was it Comic-Con or like D23 or something like that? Something
like that, yeah.
I think after Infinity War, and they were like, okay, WandaVision, it's a show, it's going to be like a sitcom. What were your first thoughts about that?
I'm a huge Scarlet Witch fan, have been since I was a kid. There was a point in my life where I owned every appearance of the Scarlet Witch, except Avengers number 16, which is like their first appearance, her and Quicksilver's first appearance, because it's very expensive. But yeah, I'm a huge Scarlet Witch fan, I'm a big Vision fan too. So when I heard about it, I was like, okay, this sounds like exactly my thing. And then at D23, I think 2019, not last, what is time? They were like, oh, this is WandaVision. It's going to be like a sitcom. And then they started talking about the Dick Van Dyke Show, which is one of my like favorite shows ever. And I was like, it's like they made a show specifically for me. So I was very, very excited, like straight from the jump. What about you?
Yeah, no, I was kind of the same. Like, I know a lot of people are sort of apprehensive and like, this is the show that I'm least excited for and stuff. And I was like, that's not the case for me because these 2 characters are so... like, I love them so much, and I love their little journey through the MCU. I think Paul Bettany and Elizabeth have such a great chemistry on screen, and you can see it off screen as well. You can see that Elizabeth genuinely cares for the character, and she definitely like grew up with the source material. Not that you need to, but I feel like it can only just enhance your characterization of a character if you...
I mean, I remember her in interviews in like 2015 when Ultron came out. She was talking about House of M back then. And I remember thinking that was really cool at the time. I'm like, oh, she's red. She gets it, you know? And like, I'll be honest, when we first got like, because with Ultron, they were like, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are going to be in it, but they're not going to be mutants. I remember at the time I was like, absolutely not. Like, why even put them in if you can't have the Magneto connection and stuff? But Elizabeth Olsen has really managed to make a great character in the MCU that is free of a lot of the baggage that her comics counterpart has, I guess. And I don't mind her not being related to Magneto as much as I thought I would.
Yeah.
Same thing with Vision too. I was kind of mad when they were like, Paul Bettany's going to be Vision. I'm like, they're making Jarvis Vision. Really? Do we have to do this? But then Ultron came out and I was like, oh, I really like this. And the more we saw of them, I'm like, I actually really like that, like, she gets her powers from an Infinity Stone, and that has her, like, she has that connection with Vision, like, right out of the gate. And I actually really like the MCU's interpretation of Vision. I think it makes the most sense, like, given the universe. Like, him having the Infinity Stone in his head as opposed to just a normal, like, I think it's called a solar gem or something like that.
Yeah.
But, so, these characters just kind of, like, I was endeared to the MCU interpretation of them like almost immediately. And there's even that scene I even started like liking the idea of their relationship like way back in 2015 because there's that scene in Ultron where like Vision like rescues her and they like look at each other.
In their arms.
Like some big romantic like thing. I'm like, oh, okay, they're actually gonna do that in the MCU.
That's one of the funny things about being a comics geek is that if you're watching that film, you're like, okay, cool, this new character saved this other new character That's nice. But we're like, oh my God, they're gonna get together. They're gonna have kids. Like, what? Excuse me? That's a robot.
Oh,
Wait,
I remember being in the theater with my non-comics reading friends back in 2015, and that scene happened, and I just went, "Oh my god!" And all my friends were like, "What the heck?" And then I had to explain on the car ride home. I was like, "Yeah, so they get married and they have kids, and then those kids don't exist, and then they exist again, and then
it's like, yeah, they get
Vision gets
reincarnated.
just
It's fine.
yeah, it's fine. Vision gets destroyed like 50 times. It's okay."
And I definitely do see what you said about like the differences because I remember thinking like, why couldn't they at least say something like because they reused the Hydra droids that were made like I don't know like the to combat the Iron Man droids that he makes. I was like, why can't it be like an old Hank Pym file and then you tie it into Ant-Man or something like that? Like, oh, these machines were built by Hank Pym and then technically Hank helped create Ultron. But I
Yeah.
was like, after a while, like it doesn't really matter at all, to be honest.
And for the MCU, it makes way more sense to have Tony make Ultron than
Mm,
Hank Pym, I think.
yeah, for sure.
Like,
Especially because obviously, like Hank Pym is a very complicated character in the comics.
I don't blame them for not wanting to deal with the baggage that will inevitably come up with Hank Pym, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, and like, it's unfortunate. The Wasp is my favorite Marvel character,
Mm,
Janet. I feel like I need to specify not Hope Van Dyne, Janet Van Dyne. Um, and there is a part of me that's sad that a lot of her characterization is just kind of getting thrown out for the sake of not wanting to deal with all that stuff that happens with them.
yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, it's like I'm okay with Hank Pym being like a decent guy. I think.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because like that whole scene in the comics was a mistake, like an artistic mistake. So I don't want to see like Hank Pym slap Michelle Pfeiffer, quite frankly,
Yeah,
on the
no,
film.
I'm not. Yeah, like I'm fine with that not being. I'm fine with that never happening. Um, yeah, but it's kind of crazy to think like that back. I saw a tweet today that was like, imagine being Paul Bettany. You literally just get hired to do this voice role in 2008, and then now you have a TV show.
So good. Like what a great characterization it is. Because like you said, Vision is distinct from Jarvis, which I liked as well. Like I was worried as well. Like, is it just going to be Jarvis in the suit? But it
Yeah,
definitely isn't.
I was really worried they were just gonna put Jarvis in a body, but he's not, and I'm really glad that they did that.
Yeah, it was like you don't want him to become like a butler for Tony.
Yeah.
Then again, that would have been interesting as well. But yeah, with this, when WandaVision was announced, I was like, I love sitcoms. I think it's a great idea to delve into Wanda's grief. I think from the forefront, that was obviously what was going to happen, especially after Infinity War. It's like they're clearly going to delve into Wanda's grief. They're going to delve into like how like more of a characterization, I guess. And I feel like, especially after this week's episode, it feels like this is the technically the origin story of the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I don't know if you've read House of M.
I have, yeah.
It feels I hate full disclosure, I hate House of M. Because I think that it makes Wanda a plot device and not a character.
Yeah.
Like everybody's pretty much manipulating her. But the thing I really like about WandaVision so far is it seems like they're being heavily inspired by House of M, but it's the focus is entirely shifted on Wanda.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's the one who's made, at least so far, she's probably being manipulated by something,
Yeah.
but at least especially with this last week's in episode 5, it's like, no, okay, Wanda clearly, like, she knows what she wants. And she, you know, like she might be having like a mental break or something to that effect, but it's entirely her, you know, it's her story. It's not Pietro trying to manipulate her to give everybody a world that they want. You know, it's not like her being pressured by the X-Men and the Avengers or whatever. And that's always been kind of a problem, I think,
Yeah.
with Scarlet Witch stories in the books, is she is this incredibly dangerous thing to deal with, and I think people forget that she's an actual character sometimes.
Yeah. They treat her
I,
less of a person and more of a weapon.
yeah, like if you read like Avengers Disassembled or House of M, she's not there's very little like compassion that goes into it. It's mostly like she is this problem that we need to stop. And WandaVision, so at least so far, and I hope that it stays this way, is being very much like, yeah, she's consumed by grief and she's doing this. And it's like not good, but she's not like a villain. She's not like a
Exactly.
terrible person. Yeah.
And that's the main thing I was worried about as well. Like you do see it sometimes still, especially after last week, episode 4, the cliffhanger for episode 4. I think everyone's like, okay, well, Wanda's the vision. Wanda's the villain. And I'm like, no, episode 4 of like how many parts is it? 9 or 10 or something?
9, I think. Yeah.
9. It's like this is like early days. Like this is clearly not laying it out just now. Like, and I think
And
that's
I really appreciated that Monica in this episode too was like, she's not a terrorist.
yes,
She's
and
not a
Jimmy as
villain.
well.
Yeah, there's clearly something else going on here. And I think that was really, and the sword perspective of like, shoot her with a missile, she's a terrorist is clearly the incorrect one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much stuff going on.
Especially when you think about like the idea that they've just clarified that the children are real. Like, we'll shoot the missile anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I think the sword stuff was really. I definitely think it's going to come back later, because why did they have Vision's body? And Vision's body was clearly like dismantled on a table. So my kind of like thing that immediately pops in my brain is like, Wanda went in to get his body because Sword is trying to like either recreate Vision or turn his corpse into a weapon, because in the MCU, Sword isn't like sentient. It's sentient weapon something.
Yes,
it's
and
like
they specifically mention that fact when Monica comes back and he's like, yeah, we changed this because people want to make weapons out of stuff. And now it's like, I don't think that's I think you are trying to make a weapon out of the Vision. And that's
then
another thing. They call him the Vision. They don't call him Vision. They don't personalize him. They treat him as a weapon and not a person.
Yeah. And I think it's very clear when Wanda's like, no one's ever going to take this away from me again. And she points the guns at the director guy. Like, it's very clear that something happened here with that. And I'm sure it's going to come up later. And yeah, you just really feel for Wanda too. I think it'd be really, I mean, we've seen with like Marvel Comics and stuff, it's really easy to turn Wanda into just like, oh, she's crazy and difficult to deal with. But this is like if you look at it from her perspective, like she loses her parents when she's a kid, her brother dies, she has to kill the love of her life and then have to watch him get killed again. Like, it's a really she's like consumed by grief, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to think, like you said, like she's been through all this stuff. She hasn't really been given a chance to process it. The whole Civil War, like, kind of happens partly because of her, not intentionally, but that's the way it's framed. Like we see in this, like people still consider her a terrorist because of an accident. It's such an interesting delve into her characterization, and I think as well, like. She definitely has initiative still. Like, she definitely wants part of this world to happen. Obviously, as a way to deal with her grief, I think. But also, you can tell that she's not completely involved in it. And I don't think that means that she is just going to be manipulated and that's it. I feel like she is being manipulated, but she has the initiative to fight back against it.
I feel like my impression of it is that somebody started this and she was not aware of it in the beginning. And now she's aware of it, but she doesn't want to change it.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the impression that I was getting from it anyway.
Because I've rewatched the episode a lot of times now, just to point out, like, I was like, okay, I need to look at every single detail. And I thought by the way, this scene was incredible. The scene with Norm and that actor, I have to say, was so good. He switched in a dime when it was like terrifying to comedic. That whole sequence where he talks about like she's in my head. He never says Wanda.
That was I mean, clearly Agnes knows something, right? Like,
yes.
I don't know if she's Agatha Harkness. The very obvious conclusion to draw with the name and the relationship with Wanda is that she's Agatha Harkness. I had like a crazy harebrained idea. We were talking about this on Twitter a little bit. I was like, what if she's Mephisto?
It would be a good twist.
Like, that would be, because it's not, like, comics nerds like us are obviously going, oh, she's Agatha Harkness, obviously. And if they, like, spinned it at the last minute and were like, no, she's Mephisto, that would be, I don't know, that'd be really cool.
And also, I would love just to see Catherine Hahn turn up in, like, Spider-Man 3 with a red outfit and be like,
right?
Hey there, Peter. I want your marriage.
Catherine Hahn is Mephisto. I love. It's probably not going to happen, but I love this idea. Yeah, and clearly, like, Agnes knows something that's going on.
Yeah.
Like, she's the only other person besides Wanda who, and I guess now Vision, who's like aware of what's happening, and it would work really well with Norm being like, she's in my head. It's not Wanda,
sure.
It's Agnes. Yeah.
Well, I think if we're going to add up the clues so far that we've seen in the episodes, I'm still leaning towards her being Agatha, because there just seems to be more clues and stuff that points that direction. We see her in the witch's outfit in the Halloween episode, in the trailer, which is obviously like a glaring one. There is the Ralph would only know our anniversary date if it was on, I think, June the 2nd. That's what she says, which was the first date of the witch trials in Salem.
Mm-hmm.
Which was like a cool little so there's all these like little witchy things, but you're right. Maybe they could do a thing where it's like the Mandarin, where it's like you get Killian and technically he's the Mandarin or whatever.
Maybe a better version of the Mandarin reveal.
God, yeah. Poor Trevor. Maybe Trevor's back.
Still mad about that, like 8 years later.
I can't wait to see how they're going to introduce that whole new Mandarin thing. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that that's a thing that is happening.
Like, yeah, that happened. We'll just ignore about that.
Yeah, part of my part of my problem with consuming media sometimes is I end up being like, no, they'd never go for the obvious choice, and I end up on like 7. I did this with like Rise of Skywalker too, and it ended up being like Rey's not related to Palpatine. That's the obvious choice. And then they were like, oh, she's your granddaughter. I'm like, great, good job, Ash.
My bad. Yeah, you never know. I guess I think it would be interesting if Agatha was there to help Wanda at first, and it's like, look, I can help you explore your powers. I can see you're grieving. Why don't we create a little bubble where you can say goodbye to Vision, and that's how you can deal with it. And then Wanda's like, how about I stay here? And then you got the whole like manipulation on top of that. Because obviously, like, in the comics, Mephisto isn't necessarily a active participant in Wanda's story. He doesn't actually like, I want children. Here's bits of my soul. It's just happens like been drawn out the ether. But at the same time, I guess you could argue that like he could potentially have made a deal with Wanda, or at least like someone manipulates Wanda into that whole thing, because like she says, they say this week there's no children in Westview.
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout the entire second episode, the whole thing they say is for the children, as if like you got to keep going on with this if you want the children. And then she ends up pregnant after doing the task.
I definitely think this, if they were ever going to introduce Mephisto, I think this is probably where they would do it. And especially like leading into Doctor Strange. I know Nightmare is the villain for Doctor Strange 2, I think.
Yeah. Pretty sure they confirmed that.
Yeah, but it's like Mephisto is kind of intrinsically tied to arguably the biggest like event of Wanda's life. The thing that kind of starts her down the path that she takes in the comics, I guess. And it's not like, I really do believe that like the stuff that happens to Wanda in the comics is a lot of the like Avengers' fault too, for how they chose to deal with that situation. Basically just like mind wiping her and trying to ignore that it ever happened, kind of thing.
That will never bite us in the butt whatsoever.
Yeah, they basically like Wanda like loses Vision and her kids And the Avengers are just like, well, this is a problem we can't really deal with right now, so let's wipe your brain. And then like 10 years later, like Janet's like, oh, remember your children, Wanda? And she snaps and loses it. But like
That's it under the like list of bad ideas with send Hulk to space. That'll work. That'll never bite us back at all. It'll all be fine.
The Avengers are known for their excellent decision-making skills, don't you know? Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like again, it's Agatha and Wanda are kind of like intrinsically tied at this point. They've had a very long-standing relationship, but it's not necessarily an antagonistic one.
No. And I think that makes a good dynamic. If like she was there to help, she's not exactly got a clean past. Like she's obviously not. She's like, look, we can just do this for a little bit, and then she becomes trapped. I think that's a good intriguing idea. Although there are elements as well that could suggest that she has some sort of malevolent nature as well, because we do see a lot of, and I've been rewatching some of the old episodes as well. There's a lot pushing not only Vision out of the way, like there's a lot of pushing Wanda as well, like trying to distract her from being aware or doing the right thing. So obviously in this episode, Wanda is being told by Vision, look, this is bad. We shouldn't be doing this. We need to sort this out. And as soon as you can see it in her face, like she's like, okay, I understand. The doorbell rings, and that's when Pietro appears. And then
when Wanda says that she's not the one controlling it, I believe her.
Yeah, I believe her 100% as well.
Yeah, I think maybe she thinks that it's all fake, or just doesn't like think about the fact that there's actual. They're like the stupid takes I've been seeing on Twitter are like, Wanda's manipulating hundreds of people and she's a villain, and I'm like, I don't think that's what's happening here.
No.
Could be wrong, but I don't think Wanda has like the full picture of what's going on. Sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
No, yeah. I was just about to say, and when Agnes and Herb are talking about Geraldine, and she's like, she's got no home.
Yeah,
it's kind of like they're
she's
sort of being like,
Vision.
Yeah, like she doesn't belong here. We need to get rid of her because she is here to help Wanda and explain. We need to stop this. So it's like the world or the person who's manipulating them is kind of pushing people out of the way, which has me really worried about Vision because it doesn't seem like he's gonna let go.
I am not optimistic about Vision making it out of the show alive. Like, I want him to really bad. I think he's real. Like, I don't think that he's like a figment of Wanda's imagination, or
No.
like I think it's actually Vision. I really do, because he has the entire show has shown him having like a lot of autonomous thought. If it was just Wanda like creating him,
No, yeah.
But I'm not very optimistic about him surviving. I think it'd be nice. I think the kids are gonna survive because we got to get that Young Avengers movie in 5 years or whatever. And by like, I was like, okay, well, with Billy and Tommy, they're probably gonna like do magic and age them up really fast, which is exactly what happened.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really cool idea as well, because there's two sort of. I think what's interesting is that everything Wanda creates, she seemingly doesn't have control over. We see it with the Stork, where she can't get the Stork to go away. The children, she can't deal with the children. She can't control them. And like we said with Vision, he can't be controlled. So I wonder if it will be like a case of him sacrificing himself or something like that. I don't want that to happen. I wouldn't mind it if they just like kept Vision alive. I think that would be cool.
I think like Paul Bettany is such like a great addition to the MCU. I think like from like the second he was introduced, like he's been such like a great character to have. And now that we don't have Cap, Iron Man, or Black Widow, it'd be nice to have. It's not like we need like quote unquote new heroes, but like Wanda is clearly going to be like a major player in the MCU going forward.
Yeah,
and it'd just be nice to have Vision there too. I think.
I think so.
And also, if you like Vision, not that Vision, another Vision is a member of the Young Avengers, so you could potentially have a thing where like Vision is like the mentor figure for the Young Avengers team or something like that. Like that'd be kind of cool.
That'd be
I don't know.
great.
That's
Yeah,
just.
far thinking.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I really like. I just really want him to survive, but then I don't want to like get monkey pawed, and it'd be like, what if they swap the plot from House of M? It's like the only way to save Vision is to wipe his memory.
Yeah, I don't like. Well, his memory is already wiped. That's the thing.
Yeah,
He very clearly says, "I don't remember anything that happened before this." So
that's
I'm.
the thing. Yeah, because we know that everything that gets created in Wanda's world, when it exits, it is now completely changed for good. We see it with the jump rope. We see it with the with Monica, like her
Mhm.
clothes. But now this week, sort of, because I was like, okay, well, what if Vision went in, it's fixed, comes out, he should be fine. But now they've sort of said that she rewrites reality in terms of like it reconstitutes matter and stuff. I'm like, so how does that work with Vision? Like, what is he reconstituted out of?
His
Like,
his corpse, maybe.
yeah, I guess so. But does that mean that when he leaves, he won't have the full like ability? I really just hope he doesn't die.
There's a shot in the trailer that really intrigues me, or in a TV spot or something that I saw, and it's clearly Wanda standing next to the Infinity Stone, to the Mind Stone,
Yes.
and I'm just like, maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. Like I am so intrigued. Like that episode ended, and I was like, I can't wait another week. Don't do this to me.
Because I think
especially
I'm
especially
pretty
with like
sure.
the thing that happens at the end of this week's episode. But
Oh,
yeah,
ridiculous.
which is just like one of many things to talk about, which is crazy.
I I think it was either the Russos or maybe McFeely and the other row, whose name I forget, Marcus, I think. Um, like I think it's either one of those groups that were talking about how when you destroy the Infinity Stones, you don't technically destroy them; they just get reconstituted like out of the ether. So that when Thanos destroyed the Infinity Stones, it's not like the Avengers could magically just make them all up again. But I feel like if Wanda could create the Mind Stone again, she could do that. So I'm really hoping that's the case, and it's not just a classic like flashback to the. I know people are saying, "Oh yeah, it's obviously a flashback to Age of Ultron," and we'll see like Strucker and stuff. I'm like, I don't want to really go
Yeah, yeah. Except the Mind Stone wasn't. It was Loki. It was still Loki's staff in Age of
exactly. Yeah,
Ultron. Like, I don't know. I'm yeah. I there's so many things that happened in this episode where I'm just like, I need to know more about all of this, and I hope it gets a satisfying conclusion. But yeah, like I'm super intrigued about what the heck is going on with Sword and Vision's body.
yes.
Um,
I don't trust that dude.
I don't trust him one bit.
No.
My like ideal scenario is like this ends and then Monica becomes the leader of Sword.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which would kind of lead nicely into Captain Marvel too. I also want to know what's going on with like Monica's relationship with Carol because there's clearly like something going on there.
Well, speaking
Uh,
of that, why don't we jump? Because we asked for some questions from people on Twitter. Why don't we jump into some of these questions? Because someone's actually asked us that exact sort of thing. So let's have a look. We have a question that says, "Do we still think that Aaron Taylor Johnson will appear in an upcoming episode? Is Dottie really Mephisto in disguise? And what do we think happened between Monica and Carol?" So why don't we start with the last part of that question? Um, yeah, that was a really great moment, obviously, when they're discussing the scenes in Endgame where uh, Wanda basically could have taken on Thanos, which is the truth.
yeah,
And they bring up Carol, and then Monica looks sort of annoyed.
yeah. I think it probably has something to do with her mom. I
Absolutely,
imagine.
yes.
Yeah, I imagine it's maybe we'll find out that like Carol like left the planet basically, or like maybe she feels like abandoned by Carol because Carol left at the end of Captain Marvel. Um, and she feels like that it's partially her fault
Mm.
that her mother is dead maybe, or that Carol didn't do enough or something like that. I don't know.
My
um
feeling was that maybe it's resentment in terms of maybe she tried to contact Carol before the snap and was like, "Look, my mom's going into surgery. She's not doing well. Can you at least come down and say hello to your best friend? And she didn't. But it's the
Yeah,
fact that she came back for everything else. Maybe she's like, look, you weren't there for my mom. And I feel like we do see, like, retrospectively, we might see elements of that in Endgame because obviously Carol very much doesn't want to stay on Earth. And
yeah,
Rocket sort of makes fun of her for that. It's like, why don't you want to stay down here? And it's like, maybe she knew about Monica dying.
yeah,
Sorry, not Monica, Maria.
yeah. I think yeah, it's. I imagine it's something to do with her mom. Um, yeah, I'm because I think Monica's gonna be in Captain Marvel too, right?
She is, yeah.
Yeah, I'm that I talk about this on Twitter a lot, but my Captain Marvel, like my interpretation of Captain Marvel, the Captain Marvel I grew up on is Monica Rambeau.
Mm.
And the fact that she's because I pretty much only read Avengers from like 82 to 87, like that run, because it was what
Yeah.
was in my library, which is why like Janet is my favorite character and stuff like that. Um, so I'm like super happy that people like love Monica Rambeau now
She's
because
so
I feel like I've been screaming on a rooftop for the past 15 years. Like, wait, like she's. I remember like in 2012 when they like relaunched Captain Marvel, I was so mad that it was Carol. I was like, come on.
like, who cares? I love her so much. Like, and like Tina's version of the character, I feel like is such a great. Like, she's only been in 2 episodes as Monica herself, and I'm more like people saying like I want her to lead the Avengers, and I'm like, look, she can do it. She to me has that same sensibility that Steve had, where he has the leadership, but also the empathy and compassion.
Yeah, that's the thing about Monica in the comics that I really love. Monica like she doesn't become Captain Marvel because like she's intrinsically tied to Marvel or anything. She
Mm-hmm.
becomes Captain Marvel because it's like she wants to help people.
Yeah.
And that's like that's the through line with her character is she just wants to help people the best of her abilities. And that's something that really shows through in WandaVision because Monica is like advocating for Wanda and being like, listen, she's not a terrorist. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and Darcy even says, she's like, after everything she put you through, you want to go back in there. And she says, yes, because like that's who Monica is. She just wants to
Yeah.
help people.
And I feel
Um,
like, especially with what she has been through in terms of like the blip and losing her mum, she above anyone else knows what it's like for Wanda, like grieving. And I feel like that's the sort of the buzzword, the keyword for this whole show is grief
mhm.
and the stages of grief. And I feel like we get to see Wanda is actually learning those stages of grief through the medium of sitcoms, like the whole dog, poor Sparky passing away.
Yeah, definitely that line about how you have to accept death is going to come back later in a very devastating way, I
Very
imagine.
much so.
Um, yeah. Yeah, this show is so I honestly think it's like the best thing Marvel's put out in years,
I agree.
really.
I think it's so good.
I mean, I love like the spectacle of Infinity War and Endgame. Um but the last time I thought I was like, wow, this is just like a really genuinely amazing movie was like 2014 with Winter Soldier, which I know is not an unpopular opinion. But like this really feels like somebody put it really good where they were like this is like one of the first Marvel things that's character driven, not action driven. There hasn't
Mm,
been a fight scene yet,
yeah.
really.
And I feel like the reason why this is the case because they have the opportunity to explore those characters in a longer medium. Like obviously with the films, I'm sure if they had like the same amount of time, they would try and have less fights and everything. But I really do think this is a great idea to delve into these characters this way. Like I know people are saying like, oh, I don't know how they're gonna deal with uh, Sam and Bucky. Like it's not gonna be the same. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It will be the same because we will get to delve into Sam and Bucky's minds and characterization. I think that's a great idea. And Zemo, like I could talk for hours about how people disrespected the character of Baron Zemo and how his version in Civil War is like, I think, one of the best villains in the MCU.
Oh, I agree. I definitely agree. Civil War gets a lot of flack these days, but I think it's one of the better, like, I hate to say like spectacle Marvel film, like
Hmm.
team up Marvel films. because like comic events, team up Marvel films, are more about like the spectacle, the action scenes,
Yeah, of course.
and Civil War really was like, let's have these superheroes fight each other kind of thing. I mean, they like talked about like that splash page shot where all the heroes are fighting each other kind of thing. And Endgame and Infinity War were the same. I mean, Endgame less so because it's like 3 hours long, but yeah. So
And it's definitely there. It's like the characterization, like it's earned characterization because it is a 23 plus movie franchise where you're doing characterization over certain films as well as having, like you said, and I think that's what Marvel do so well is that every film distinctly feels like its own book. Like when you read like an Avengers book, it has a different feel to reading a Captain Marvel book.
And I don't want it to sound like I'm disparaging like Marvel
No,
movies.
no, for
I
sure.
love them very dearly, but
Yeah, yeah, but Winter Soldier is like on another level.
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
It's like,
and I think
especially
mostly because it's like so focused on Cap and Cap's mind and Cap's character arc and stuff like that.
that whole Hydra scene with the computer base and Zola is just so
Yeah.
good. Romanoff, Natasha. I was like, oh my god, Zola.
I remember losing my mind. I was like, "Oh, I know." Really?
You got the computer head. You got the computer head. I was like, I can't believe they did that. Like,
the second I see MODOK in the MCU is when I'm gonna finally be like, okay.
Which is crazy considering that we've seen Howard the Duck, all this weird stuff. Like,
I feel like MODOK is a whole other level than Howard the Duck,
true.
though.
Yeah, there's so many. I can't wait to see the Spot. I still think that'd be a great villain to have in the Spider-Man film. Shoot, throw spots everywhere, jump through them, be like a mind fuck.
I do appreciate that, like, it seems like with this next phase of Marvel movies, they have, and TV shows and stuff, they have embraced the comic booky nature of it all.
For sure.
Like in Age of Ultron, Wanda's powers aren't even as weird as they are now, you know? And Scarlet Witch's powers have always been kind of difficult to explain.
Yeah.
But in Age of Ultron, they're just like, she messes with your mind. That's it. And shoots red things out of her head. But this is like, no, she actually warps reality now. and same thing like Spider-Man 3 having all 3 Spider-Mans in it, and Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness and all that. I'm excited. I'm really excited for this new era of Marvel movies to just be weird. Because that's like my favorite stuff when Marvel is just like, there's absolute like balls to the walls, insane stuff that's happening.
Like, my excitement overrides my apprehension by like 50% because I just feel like they can do it, and I feel like WandaVision. If you had any apprehensive nature towards this project, WandaVision should be like look, they can do it. Chill out.
Yeah.
Especially
I think starting with WandaVision is really interesting too. Because I feel like maybe the obvious choice. I mean, I think originally Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to come out first.
Yeah.
But I think like starting off with like arguably the weirdest premise for these new shows was like a really interesting choice. And it's being really like well received too. I mean, there's some people that are like, oh, it's boring.
Well, they're wrong.
Yeah.
There is no extra contextual information as well. Like being during a pandemic, there has been a lot of loss. There has been a lot of, all we're doing is streaming. And someone did a really great article. I can't remember which article it is. I'm so sorry. I will try and research it. But they did a really great point where it's like, we ourselves are all sort of diving into television to distract ourselves from the pain and like the real world stuff, which is what Wanda's doing. So it kind of feels like a not fun, but like a timely example of like, okay, well, we can understand and we can empathize a bit with Wanda because we're all kind of doing it. Like every Friday we're like, WandaVision, nothing bad's happening.
I think like with something that I've really like noticed, I really noticed it with The Mandalorian too. Having a thing to look forward to every week is like really crucial in these times. So as much as I would like to like binge it all in one sitting, right? Like have all the content at the same time. I think like it actually works a lot better going week to week. Just
me
because
too,
of, like
100%.
Yeah, like I if I watch this all in like one 12-hour period, I don't think it would hit the same.
It would
Um,
definitely not. And it feels like we said, it's a comic book. You go to the store, you're like, okay, I need to know what happens in this issue. There's the ending, there's the cliffhanger. You know, it's
yeah,
like,
and then you
oh,
wait for next month. Like,
exactly.
yeah. I'm really, really enjoying like the experience of watching this show.
Hmm.
Like, I've just been me and my friend Abby, who's a good friend of mine. Is we've just been like texting each other back and forth, like for since the show came out. Like, pretty much all we text about now is like WandaVision theories.
All my friends, I'm just like, have you watched it yet? Have you seen this yet? My good friend Alden, you might know him on Twitter, AD Strider. First thing I did, I sent him this morning was I made a meme on my phone. It's the scene where Wanda has all the guns pointing at Hayward, and I just put, "You Homo sapiens and your guns." Like, that's all I could think of during that scene.
I saw like people like posting like those things side by side, and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." I doubt it was intentional, but that is so cool.
It would be crazy. Like at this point, like if they did introduce Eric or
I mean,
Magnus or whatever,
they're
I
gonna
would
have
even,
to eventually, right? Like,
yeah.
and it's actually pretty easy to retcon Scarlet Witch being related to him. They did it in the comics. Like, they didn't know who.
Look,
They thought like the Wizard was their father for a period of time.
look. I'm just saying. Like, this is again. I was speaking to Alden about this. He's like, yeah, they can introduce like the High Evolutionary. I'm like, look, I don't give a shit. Like, MCU can do not much wrong in my opinion. But if you introduce the High Evolutionary as their father, I'm gonna lose it because I don't want some fucking like cow being their dad.
I think it'd be really interesting if like, because again, it's super easy to retcon it as like you were adopted.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason the Mind Stone activated your powers is because of your X gene.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So like that, in my brain, it's like really easy for them to just be like, and they're Magneto's kids now. Don't think too hard about it.
I'm so desperate for them to reverse that in the comics because it's so stupid. And it's
back in the era of, of them trying to make Inhumans the X-Men, and be like, they don't exist because we don't own them and can't make movies about them.
it was so like, and then when they're just like, we don't do the Fantastic Four anymore. They went away. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
And now that there's a movie, they're like, no, we love the smudged and the smudged
Yeah.
writing.
Jenny Stam?
Jenny.
Like, no, like, what are you talking about? These characters are still awesome. Like, don't just throw them away because you don't own the rights. Especially since, ironically, they do now.
Yeah, I mean, it's
X-Men have come
really
back.
funny watching them like backtrack in the past couple of years. To be like, oh no, we love the X-Men again because we can make movies about them.
When they announced all the new X-Men stuff, and I read like, House of X and everything, and I was like, okay, this is really cool, this is really awesome. I really hope they retcon Scarlet Witch, and then they're like, Scarlet Witch, we don't talk about her, she's evil, like as if she's like a nursery tale for kids. I'm like, ah, damn it, like just undo it, please, for me.
Yeah,
It makes more sense for her to have Magneto as the dad.
I feel like Wanda in the comics has kind of been rehabilitated. Sounds like a terrible way to say that. I'm just talking like from a character writing perspective.
Yeah.
Recently, but like it's been Wanda. Part of like why I am still so cautiously optimistic about WandaVision is because I keep expecting them to screw her up because that's been the precedent in comics for the last like 20 something years. Like the Children's Crusade was good, but it's still like, why is she marrying Doctor Doom? Okay, why are we
Have
going
you seen
in
him?
direction?
He's a handsome fella.
Yeah, what lady doesn't love a metal mask?
And she's like, oh look, I got a new
I
groove.
actually really like the Children's Crusade though.
Yeah, I'm a big Doctor Doom fan, so I've been very sort of, especially with all the theories for this series, I've just been like, look, I'm just saying, it's the perfect way to introduce Doctor Doom.
If Doom shows up, I'll be extremely surprised, but in the best way possible.
Yeah, especially because I was like, when I saw the Loki trailer, I was like, that's not Doom, is it? That guy with the hood.
Uh-huh.
I was like, is that Doom? There's no way that's Doctor Doom. I was like, okay, well, it's not Doctor Doom. And then I was thinking, I was like, okay, Mephisto. We all know who Mephisto has in his little cave in hell. Cynthia Von Doom. Like, I was like, if they introduced Cynthia Von Doom, I would be confused, and I expect the audiences to be confused. But if it was just for me, I'd be happy about it. I'd be like, look,
I
thank you so
imagine
much.
like I keep forgetting we're getting a Fantastic Four movie too. Like
Right?
there was that day where like they were like, here's all the Star Wars and Marvel announcements, have fun. I'm like, oh, we're getting like a She-Hulk TV show and like all this stuff
Like,
just
you forget, yeah,
I still haven't processed that like Kate Bishop in the MCU is happening relatively soon.
mm,
I'm a big like
I
Young
can't,
Justice fan too.
like, I'm
But
still shocked that Abomination's coming back.
right? Yeah, I keep forgetting like again, I'm just like there's too much information.
It's like trying to press, like, okay, where's the bits? Because they like the way they've introduced Sword now, and they're like, oh yeah, we had astronauts, wink, wink, and we're like, okay, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. That would be really cool to see where they go with that, because we've already kind of seen the Ultimates route with the Fantastic Four, um, with the Jesus Christ, the F4 film. So it would be interesting to see.
Fan Four Stick, that one.
Oh, yeah, Fan Force. It'd be interesting if they go kind of that similar route, because I know people hate MCU Peter, but in my mind, he kind of feels a bit like Ultimate Peter.
He feels way more like Ultimate Peter than he does like
Yeah,
616, even though that doesn't even exist anymore. Like mainline Peter, I think.
exactly. Yeah.
And I think people forget how popular Ultimate Spider-Man was.
I love
Like
Ultimate Spider-Man.
Ultimate Spider-Man is great, but yeah, I don't know. There's so many things to be excited about. Case in point, we're not even really talking about WandaVision anymore. We're just kind of like speculating about MCU.
Well, yeah. Why don't we go back to the okay? So for the same question, we've got two more bits to add on. So is Dottie really Mephisto in disguise? Well, I thought that was interesting because she's on the board.
She isn't. You're correct. You're right. Neither is Agnes. So that would
No.
much to think about.
But even at least Agnes has like a picture on the board.
Yeah.
There is no picture of Dottie, which I thought was interesting.
Satan is just a busybody housewife. I love that.
I love that so much.
I love that take. I don't know.
Satan's like, does my earrings make it look fat? Like, what are you talking about? You're the devil. Chill out. Also, I love the idea of what's the character's name again? With the mustache.
No idea.
The one who looks like Ross from Friends. I like the idea he's married to Satan. Perfect. I don't think Dottie is Mephisto, but I feel like she has got something up her
Yeah.
What if she's Doctor Strange?
She's Clea. That's who she is.
Well, they did announce there's a casting
don't take
announcement.
Me seriously.
There's gonna be like a comicbook.com article about that. There is a casting announcement for Clea this week that came out, which I thought was really interesting. Or at least someone who's Benedict Cumberbatch's age range and happens to be, I was like, okay, well, obviously that's what they're going. Which I feel bad for Rachel McAdams, who apparently is back. Like, I don't know what she's doing.
I have no idea how Multiverse of Madness is gonna go.
Oh,
If there's and Wanda and Clea and Nightmare all in the same and a sequel to Doctor Strange. I don't know, but I don't like the MCU Doctor Strange because I don't think it's weird enough. I love the Dormammu bit.
Yeah,
that's my favorite bit. But I hate the sling rings. I hate that's how you have to teleport with the I hate that. But we're not talking about that. We'll have to talk about that some other time.
Well, now the multiverse is open, it can take the energy from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the reason I love it so much is that I'm so glad that they're going to retroactively make the reference to Doctor Strange in Spider-Man 2 canon, because technically he's just gone to a different dimension in 2004 for some reason.
Spider-Man 3 is going to be a trip. I can't wait.
These two films I'm so excited about. I'm wondering what we were seeing. I think we're going to see Deadpool in Doctor Strange 2. Walking in the background,
honestly, if Doctor Strange 2 is just hopping from multiverse to multiverse and there's Deadpool, there's 3 different versions of Spider-Man.
I'm fine with that. That really dodgy Italian Captain America film. That'd be great. The Italian Red Skull. What the vision? It's like, what are you talking about? Love that. Do we still think we'll see Aaron Taylor Johnson?
No,
No, I don't think so.
no.
Then
I
again, it'll be interesting.
I
Yeah.
thought it was Aaron Taylor Johnson, and I think they did that on purpose because he's got the Age of Ultron hair where it's like silver on the top and black on the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like the Evan Peters interpretation of where it's just like all silver. I think
Silver.
they did that on purpose because then when the camera pans around, you're like, what the heck is going on?
And I am sure, I'm uncertain if the hair is like completely because it looks different. Like the head looks different. That's why people are like, oh, maybe he's gonna come back. But I'm like, I don't know if that's the case. Um,
I think we haven't talked about the Pietro stuff. I think I am okay with it being Evan Peters instead of. I think Evan Peters did a much better version of Pietro
mm,
than Aaron Taylor Johnson did. Partially because he's had time,
yeah,
but I think like Evan Peters like nails the characterization of Pietro or Peter or whatever they call him in the. Another thing that can be very easily retconned. It's just yeah, his name is Pietro, but he lives in America, so they call him Peter.
okay. Let's have a look at some of it. Because I really love. I got spoiled about him
Mm-hmm.
because people on the internet suck and leaked
It was
info.
trending on Twitter at like 6 a.m. in the morning before like normal people. I mean, I watch it like the second it drops at like
Yeah.
my 1 o'clock in the morning, but yeah.
Well, I woke up and watched it, but it got leaked 3 days beforehand.
Really?
Yeah, there's a clip from I think it's not even this episode. It's like from another episode with
I had heard that there were like leaks, and then I went and muted like literally every variation of WandaVision and leaks and spoilers on
yes.
Twitter, so I didn't get didn't get it messed up for me.
Yeah, I was on YouTube and it just put like on my normal. Just I clicked on YouTube and it came up with because I've been watching WandaVision reactions. It came up with a clip and I was like, and it was his face. And I was like, God, like come on. And it had grey hair, so I was like, of course he's gonna be Pietro. So I wasn't too surprised by that scene, sadly, but also I thought it was really cool and opens up a lot of crazy doors. We've got another question. It says, with Fox's Pietro showing up, is it possible that the genesis of the Hex is actually the previously unseen Fox vs. Scarlet Witch?
Maybe.
I feel like
I
that's a
don't know.
lot. That's a
I feel like
lot
that's I
of
feel like
information.
that's a stretch, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think Scarlet Witch exists in the Fox universe because we see like that Pietro has a sister, but she's
Younger.
like 9. Like
I think they did reference like he has another sister or something, which was so stupid because it's like, okay,
I
we
mean,
might use a wonder.
maybe it's like an X-Men evolution thing, where like
Mm,
Wanda just got kind of sent away.
she
There's
doesn't.
there's many things to love about X-Men Evolution. The Scarlet Witch interpretation, I don't think, is one of them. But
I just and I was talking about this the other day as well. Like, I don't think introducing this version of Quicksilver because there's different possibilities. One, it could just be a meta joke. The idea that it's Pietro, but she's recasted him because obviously he's died and she can't conjure up anything, so she's picked this other dude. And for us, it's a joke because obviously we know that Evan Peters played Peter um, Maximoff somewhere else.
yeah,
Two, it could be that she's plucked him from the Fox universe.
or it could be that he's
Mephisto.
or it could be that he's going there to help her.
Could be as well.
Yeah. That's kind of like I don't know. Mostly because we don't have enough information to make a conclusion one way or the other about what's going on. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's just she picked this random dude to play Pietro. I think it's actually Pietro.
Okay.
That might be like kind of like maybe like a Flash situation. It's like able to like run between multiverse. I don't know, but like don't actually know enough about Quicksilver to like know if that's a valid theory or not. But yeah, I don't know. I think it is actually Pietro though. Like I
Okay.
don't think they would go through the trouble of casting Evan Peters to do that. Unless they were like, this is the Quicksilver that more people know.
It could be, yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, he's a good actor.
I do feel kind of bad for Aaron Taylor Johnson though.
Yeah, I do as well.
Yeah.
I think it could be Mephisto.
It could be. Yeah, that's a I don't think it is what people want it to be.
No, I don't think it is going to be either Pietro coming back to life, or the reason I don't think it's exactly the Fox first version is because it's so complicated to bring that up. Because now people are saying like, oh yeah, Hugh Jackman can come back. It's like, no.
I don't think he wanted to come back in his own universe.
It's like, it's like they're not gonna just go, yeah, we'll bring back Sophie Turner and everyone else back, because then you get all the baggage.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like if they're gonna bring up like a Foxverse character back, this is gonna be the only one, and it's because of all the multiverse madness stuff.
Exactly.
Like, but I don't think it's like what people want it to be. I don't think it's like Foxverse X-Men or Pietro just like popping up and he's now Quicksilver in the MCU now. There's clearly like something else going on. I didn't even think about the fact that it could just be like a joke. Like he's just some random dude. Yeah.
Like I just thought, also because the recasting joke, and to us it's like, because obviously of Evan Peters, but you never know. I do think it's definitely a malevolent situation because it's distracting Wanda from doing the right thing and be like, okay, this is what's wrong. Okay, we've got a few more questions and then I think we'll wrap up. Director Hayward said he was given approval to share the Wanda footage of Vision's corpse being taken. Who has power over the director? Does he answer to someone else outside of S.W.O.R.D.? Is the World Security Council still a thing? Is someone pulling his strings?
I think it's entirely possible that S.W.O.R.D. is just like he's just a scummy guy.
Yeah.
Like I think like S.W.O.R.D's like clearly a very like powerful institution, right? They're able to like rally together all these different government organizations and people to deal with the Wanda problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be though. I don't know. It could be like like maybe like Ross, like Thaddeus Ross or something.
Oh, that douchebag, always causing trouble.
I hate him. It could be something like that where it's like, yeah, Vision is like property of the government or something, or like I don't know, like because Tony Stark is dead now, so like he can't really like do anything to like, yeah. But my like the indication that I got is like they probably have had Vision's corpse for a while, because he is I mean, it's very difficult to look at that. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get a nice high depth version of it somewhere down the line, but it's very difficult to look at him and he's like his hands on a table and his head's taken off and like
it's kind of cruel.
It's because he is a person. That's the thing, and it's like that's. But a lot of people probably wouldn't see him that way, and Wanda was kind of the first person that did, I think.
Yeah, they call him, like Hayward said, the Vision. They took the Vision as opposed to Vision, and also they 5 years worth as well.
Yeah.
So you don't know what they've been doing, and I guess as well, like when Maria passed away, Hayward could have done anything he wanted. And
to like the average like viewer or average like not viewer, but like average person, Vision just is a robot. They never met him. They don't know him. They didn't have like the relationship that all the other Avengers had with him, particularly Wanda. So, yeah. I
know that there was a really funny tweet I saw earlier where it said Hayward is an anagram of Hydra and then WA. I'm like, I don't know.
Like, I think we're... Yeah, I don't know.
And again, hey, Ward. Hey, it's Ward. Maybe it's really going into TV universe.
I never watched S.H.I.E.L.D., so I can't comment.
Oh, no. Yeah, I think there's definitely someone. I think he's going to be like a villain of sorts. I don't know if it'll be connected to Mephisto. I don't know if it'll be connected to or whoever's manipulating stuff. But
I mean, it's also entirely possible that he just like
is a douche.
Just is a jerk that took Vision's body, you know?
Yeah, and wanted to weaponize it.
Mhm.
Is the aerospace engineer that Monica is contacting going to be her Skrull friend, Talos' kid, who we met in Captain Marvel? That
I
would be a good
completely missed that
early
on first
setup.
viewing. I watched the episode like right before we recorded, and I completely missed the bit about her like texting her aerospace friend. Um,
I think that'd be awesome if it is.
yeah, I love scrolls. I'm always down for
Me
more
too.
scroll, and I love. This might be an unpopular opinion, I don't know, but I love the MCU interpretation of scrolls
Oh no, me too.
because it completely like flips,
Switched. Yeah.
yeah, like what you think of scrolls. Um, and like as much as I like Secret Invasion, I don't think let me rephrase that. As much as I like the concept of Secret Invasion, not actual Secret Invasion, I don't think that's the thing they're going to do in the MCU anytime soon. Because that's like a very, very long game that they have to
Yeah.
play. Um, yeah, I'm down. I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah, I really love the idea as well that obviously since Captain Marvel, they've been in contact and they've kept in touch with the Skrulls. They've been protecting not only just Earth, but obviously like they're going to be going around doing other galaxies. I know there is a theory that Sky, aka Daisy Johnson, my bae, my boo from Agents of Shield, could potentially be in the Secret Invasion show, and it ties into the whole Nick Fury stuff with Sword. I would love that. Um, I feel like that's a great like the whole Secret Invasion show is a good concept because it can be, like you said, not a whole expansive long build up to an arc where it's like who is who, but it can be like a nice tight thriller and like
Like that is a much more interesting Secret Invasion to me than Secret Invasion really only works if you have like the decades long context and history
yeah,
of Marvel. It's like, oh, it's Elektra, but it's not Elektra. Is Elektra dead? Like
which is an ongoing problem with her.
is
But
Elektra dead? It's...
okay, we and our last question is, who do you think Ralph is?
My gut is saying Mephisto.
Everyone's Mephisto, I think.
Yeah,
Frankly.
everyone's Mephisto. Or nobody. Or it's just a joke. Like the Dick Van Dyke Show is what they took inspiration from the first
Mm-hmm.
episode. Millie, like Mary Tyler Moore's character's best friend, who Agnes is emulating in that first episode, talks about her husband Jerry all the time. It's like
Yeah.
Jerry this, Jerry that. Jerry doesn't show up for like 2 seasons. If I'm remembering correctly, Jerry doesn't show up for a really long time, and there's just a lot of like my husband Jerry. I think it might just be a joke
Could be.
about like yeah, but I don't know. I don't know anything with this show. That's the thing I love about it so much. Summer. I have no idea what's going on.
Wouldn't it be great if Ralph was like Doctor Strange or someone like that?
He's Doctor Strange. Yeah, maybe.
Like
I
he
think
loves lavender.
I think Doctor Strange is showing up in this show by the
Oh,
end.
for sure. I hope. I think 100%. The I really love. I think Doctor Strange is a given. I thought Pietro's a given. I think Doctor Strange is a given. There's a really great. I'm not a really great fan of artwork, like Photoshop artwork that people make. And they're like, "Look, isn't this gonna be cool?" I'm like, "Oh, pretty lame." But there was one actually that I really liked, where it had like Wanda with the headpiece, and then they photoshopped Tobey Maguire as an older Spider-Man, but wearing the end suit from the JMS run of Amazing Spider-Man. I was like, oh my god, if he showed up at the end, I was like, the multiverse is in danger. I was like, oh, look, I just like,
Well,
look,
I
here's
had heard a
money.
thing that like Wanda's gonna be in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, I think that's the. I think because Doctor Strange is in it,
Yeah.
and
Man. Again, I love weird time warping stuff. I love it. Gosh. And I also really like the relationship between Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, so I'm very for that.
me too.
But,
And I think
yeah.
it'd be a great way to introduce older concepts and maybe Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
Please, for the love of Christ, bring him up. It's like, oh yeah, we hope.
Uncle Ben, but he's played by Robert Downey Jr. Sorry.
Who would you get to play Uncle Ben?
Oh God.
Timothy Oliphant.
I was literally about to say Timothy Olyphant. Pedro Pascal. No.
That'd be great. Like, just yeah. You're like, hey, don't go taking
I
money.
think Pedro Pascal would be a really good Reed Richards, actually, but that's a conversation for another time.
That'd be great. I'd love that, actually.
I have no idea. I'm gonna just go with Timothy Olyphant because that was literally the first thing that popped into my brain.
Okay, that's going in now. Just imagining Timothy Olyphant and having that little briefcase and be like, I'm gonna go out. As long as he doesn't show up at a graveyard.
Yeah.
Like that Amazing Spider-Man 2 deleted scene. Which I still don't understand.
I try not to think about Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then I'm forced to think about it because it's like Jamie Foxx is coming back as Electro. I'm like, what?
Okay. I really hope he has the actual suit.
I hope it's Jamie Foxx, but he's like
in the big yellow.
Yeah, he's got like the big yellow lightning bolts.
I want that so bad. Like a really souped up Teletubby. I want that. Oh, I'm just so excited. I just want the idea of seeing Willem Dafoe back is going to be great. All of this.
All these movies are going to be insane. I love it.
Crazy. Right. Well, I think that's all we got time for this week. Do you want to plug where people can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Rogue Podron, which is a Star Wars podcast that I'm on where we talk about Star Wars books and various other things. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
You can find me, you can listen to the Imperial Side podcast, which is my Star Wars podcast where we talk about gibberish. And also find me on Twitter at CMWASHBY. Well, that's all we've got time for this week. We'll be back next time to talk WandaVision. Bye.